It was just after 3 a.m. on a quiet August night in 1963. A Royal Mail train carrying millions in cash thundered down the tracks from Glasgow to London. The crew thought it was a routine journey, another night, another delivery. But around a lonely stretch of railway near Ledburn, the signal light ahead turned red. The driver slowed, confused. Moments later, 15 men emerged from the darkness. And what happened next would stun an entire nation. No guns. No alarms. No witnesses. In under half an hour, they stole what would be worth over £55 million today. And vanished into the night. This is not just a story of theft. It's a story of genius, greed, and the thin line between fortune and downfall. This is the true story of the Great Train Robbery of 1963. The Great Train Robbery, how 15 men stole £55 million and almost got away with it. Chapter 1, The Plan. In the summer of 1963, Britain was calm, routine, predictable. But in smoky pubs and quiet garages across London, a group of men were planning something that would shatter that calm forever. Their leader was Bruce Reynolds, charming, intelligent, and obsessed with pulling off the biggest job the country had ever seen. His dream, rob the Royal Mail train that ran from Glasgow to London, a train that carried millions in used banknotes bound for the Bank of England. Reynolds wasn't alone. His crew included some of London's most skilled criminals, Buster Edwards, Tommy Wisby, Bob Welch, and a man who would later become infamous, Ronnie Biggs. Together they studied every detail of the train's journey, where it slowed, where it stopped, how many guards were on board, and how to stop it without raising alarm. Their plan was simple but brilliant. Near the small village of Ledburn, there was a remote signal post, no houses, no witnesses. If they could tamper with the red signal light, they could stop the train in the dead of night. Then, with military precision, they'd strike fast, grab the money, and vanish before anyone knew what happened. For months, they prepared, walkie-talkies, trucks, gloves, and a farmhouse hideout already rented. The night was set, August 8, 1963. The Royal Mail train carried more money than usual, £2.6 million. And so, in the darkness of that night, history was about to change. Chapter 2, The Heist. At exactly 3 a.m., the train slowed as it approached the false red signal. The driver, Jack Mills, brought it to a stop, just as the gang had planned. In the silence, men in dark clothing appeared from the shadows. They had already cut the phone lines to prevent calls for help. When the driver stepped out to check the signal, he was overpowered. They uncoupled the engine and the high-value mail coach, then moved them half a mile down the track to a bridge, Bradegoe Bridge, where the rest of the gang waited. With practiced efficiency, they broke into the mail car and began unloading bags of cash, 120 of them in total. Inside each bag, bundles of used £1, £5, and £10 notes. In just 30 minutes, they had hauled away the equivalent of £55 million in today's money. They made no gunfire, no alarms, no chaos, only quiet precision. When the job was done, they left the crew behind, shaken but alive. Then they disappeared into the night, heading to Leatherslade Farm, their secret hideout. For a moment, it seemed perfect. They had pulled off the biggest heist in British history. Newspapers would call it the crime of the century. But perfection never lasts. Chapter 3, The Aftermath. At the farm, spirits were high. The gang celebrated, drinking, laughing, counting stacks of money. They had done the impossible. But in their confidence, they made their first mistake: they stayed too long. Scotland Yard launched a nationwide manhunt. Roadblocks, interviews, and every detective in London on alert. The robbers had left behind small traces, fingerprints, food, and tools. When the police discovered Leatherslade Farm, those traces told the story of who had been there. Within weeks, arrests began. One after another, the men who thought they were untouchable were captured. In 1964, 11 of them stood trial and were handed sentences up to 30 years, some of the harshest ever given for robbery in the UK. But the story didn't end with their convictions. In 1965, Ronnie Biggs escaped from prison, climbing over the wall and vanishing from England. He resurfaced in Brazil, living as a fugitive for decades, the escaped train robber who became a media sensation. Bruce Reynolds stayed free for 5 years before finally being caught in Mexico. He served his time quietly, never regretting the heist, calling it a moment of freedom. Though much of the money was never recovered, the legend of the great train robbery lived on, not just as a crime, but as a story of audacity, precision, and the eternal battle between fortune and fate. It remains one of the boldest robberies in history, a night when a handful of men stopped a train, stole a fortune, and for a fleeting moment, fooled an entire nation. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, like, comment, share and hit the notification bell to get notified on our future videos.